right, hi guys. Welcome to another session. Thank you guys for joining our Cultivated, and we start again. Kelvin is back, and this is the part 2 of what his experience in China. Hope you guys enjoyed the last video. Myself, had a lot of fun, and thank you guys for the feedback that you gave us. And we decided to do another part. So, Kelvin, how are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, guys. When was that? 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago, yes.
Yeah. So I've been busy a little bit, and yeah, things are good, man. I'm feeling good. Yeah.
Did you see the feedback that we got from the first part?
I saw there was a guy on YouTube that said they enjoyed what you asked about the imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where I say that with Chinese people, it's really not really there, you know.
Yes.
Because if you go to China and they just like you, and Chinese people like you, they'll just give you work. You know.
Yeah.
They'll just be like, "Oh, Cecil, I like you, my friend.
Yeah.
You know, here's some work."
Yeah.
But with the foreigners, you have to really present your professional, professional side. So that was interesting, you know. So we might, that was one comment, and I think overall, I think there was some likes and and some views. You know, my friends watched the video, so thank you to everyone, and I hope you're gonna watch this one too.
Yeah, and hope you do the same. You give us this equal support that we got the other time.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So speaking of China, so maybe we'll actually come back to imposter syndrome if we get the time. Mm-hmm. But for this session, I was hoping that we can talk about the parallels between, because you've been in this culture, the Kenyan culture, or the African setting.
Yeah.
And you've been there.
Yeah.
You've been in China and Hong Kong. So maybe you can give us parallels in terms of culture, in terms of business, in terms of education, all those. But we'll go step by step.
Yeah.
So maybe we can just start with, I think the last conversation we had was on business.
Yeah.
So maybe we can just jump into that. We can continue with that. Maybe what was your business experience?
Yeah.
And I remember that you were moving to Hong Kong at that time. You were transitioning to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So what was generally the experience in terms of how business is done there? The regulations, how the governments handled businesses. Mm-hmm. We know in Kenya, probably we'll talk more about Kenya later on, but maybe you can just proceed with Hong Kong and maybe China.
Okay. So it's, I think, just to lay it out, I think African culture and Asian culture, we're both very traditional based cultures, you know?
Yeah.
And also just our lifestyles are very similar. Like for example, in China, when you do business, they tell you there's a word called guanxi.
Guanxi.
Guanxi means relationships.
Guanxi.
Yeah, if you know someone in the government, you're gonna get a job, you know?
Yeah.
So guanxi means relationship. Guanxi is who do you know?
Okay.
And it's very deep in the culture, you know? They tell you everything is guanxi. You know? Even if you're gonna get to a good school, it's guanxi, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think, and so when they told me that, Kelvin, in China, if you wanna do best in business,
guanxi.
You know, get good guanxi, just have good guanxi, good guanxi.
It's more or less like network.
Yeah, and I was in Kenya, it's almost the same way, and Africa in general, you know, I'm pretty sure, my friends in West Africa would agree, you know, if you're gonna get ahead, you know, you gotta pay some stuff, you know, you gotta make some relationships, you know, and so I think on that level, we're the same.
Uh-huh.
But when it comes to for example, what we have in common, I think we're all in the industrial people, but I think we are equipped in different ways. Mm-hmm. You know, I hear, you know, I'm not a good historian, but I hear people say that China, just 50 years ago, most of China was farmland, you know, most people were farmers, you know.
Yes.
And the economy has been able to transform very quickly, where most people now have moved from the villages into the cities, you know.
Yeah.
And
to offer the labor force for industries.
Yeah, and so it's really the development for someone who's lived in China, you know, and in many cities in China too, you know, you see skyscrapers in every cities, man, you know, they're everywhere. So which means you know, like they're developing fast, and they have like fast technology, and they have like equipment, you know, and they have like technology, you know. Whereas here we're like discovering maybe like, you know, I feel like that's like, you know, like in Hong Kong, for example, things are very, Hong Kong is a very business friendly environment, you know. Like starting a business in Hong Kong, registering a business in Hong Kong is very easy, you know. So you can just land in Hong Kong today, register a business, have a corporate bank account very quickly, you know. And then if you want to have like an office, you can have like a virtual office.
Yeah.
You know, you know, and they will receive your calls, they will receive your letters, they will answer. You know, everything's professional, but everything is set up to get you like very, you know, started very quickly. You know, yeah.
So probably like in a day you'll be able to set up your business.
In a day, probably, you know.
Yeah.
Like in a week, you've done everything, like, you know, and everything is virtual, like low cost. You know, it's not like you've invested in like. You know, but also networking is the same way. They network very fast as well, you know. So I think that's one of the challenges. Like I think right now, like in Kenya, is I'm trying to get into my mode, into my business mode, and for me, business mode means like fast networking. You know, it's like I'm like, hey, Cecil, like, you know, what do you have to next week? You know, I'm free. Like, yo, so we're going out, but we're going out, and when we go out, because we don't see each other so often, we talk on some important things, you know, but then we're like, you know, that's how people move in China, you know, like they combine friendship with business, I think, you know, and when you combine friendship with business, then when people hang out, you know, in China it's very common, like people go out, or after they get drunk, that's when they start talking business, you know, that's when they start talking business, like no business before that. It's friendship.
Wow,
you know? Before that, you just sit down and you have fun, you know, you meet my family, you know, and everything we eat. And then after that, when everyone's like, whatever, then we're like, so about that thing, you know? So maybe say something about it.
My curiosity is based on, I think where I wanted us to take the conversation was, so from the conversation that we had last time, which is mostly educational, university education is theoretical, just like in Africa.
Yes, mostly.
Mostly, yes. So that's something very familiar, sort of very similar to Kenya or to Africa. So I would like to know where we part ways in terms of systems. A Kenyan in university once they graduate, and a Chinese in university once they graduate, more or less they're the same because they've just been, they're kind of half-baked. They're not ready for the industry. But then when you look at Chinese or someone who has studied in China, they tend to be more productive or maybe do more as compared to someone in Kenya, maybe 3 or 4 years after school. So I'm trying to understand where we part. Because if you look at even the kind of work that we're doing, we kind of reach out to China for almost everything, whether it's something as simple as toothpick or things as complex as roads. We have to reach out to them.
You know, I think the answer to your question is just very simple, and it's speed. You know, they just have figured out a way to move faster. You know, and I think if we move fast as well, you know, I think you can argue about one other. I was just having a discussion with a friend today, actually, earlier, that China is laughing at America right now because of the political systems, right? Because in democratic systems, there's a way things move, right? And like right now, like for example, China is watching Donald Trump being like, you know, arrested, and it's like, look at the chaos of democracy, you know. So it can point to something like that. Whereas in China, they decide, like for example, when China decided they wanted to clean their rivers and their oceans, the government kind of like enforced it, right? They just said like it's illegal to go fishing. It's illegal to dump things here. Factories, you cannot dump your waste.
And there's no noise anywhere.
And so in like 20 years, everything like clears out, So I feel like there's the political aspect to it. But I think the other aspect, like China being a very like deep culture,
Yeah.
they have a very long culture, I think they have this philosophy of life, the philosophy of like, it's like yoga philosophy, but they live it, like the feng shui, the Lao Tzu, these are the philosophers, these are like people who believe in like just experimenting and moving fast,
Yeah.
So I think because they move fast, they learn. A lot of people learn, So a lot of people, like even if you look at the education system, it's very fast and it's very like wholesale, a mass scale, like, but it's really fast, like people, like even a high schooler in China, they're really like probably studying twice. I feel like, they're being pushed to, to put in more because the competition is just, they feel the pressure more. So I feel like if we just also ask, like, because this is, I think, how when we think about our society and how we can make it better, is like, perhaps we don't need to do much. We just need to like be able to just be more proactive, Like,
is it individually driven, or is it?
It's part of the.
Is it like a corporate culture?
I think it's a corporate culture. Like we were talking in the last episode, we said like an average Chinese person that's finished high school, already they get out. It's already in their mind that they're gonna get out and they're gonna get like internships,
Yeah.
So this guy is gonna do like marketing for this, whatever. He's gonna be a teaching assistant, for like 3 months. They're gonna go and do like some, some sales somewhere, So they try to find all this experience, but I think the result of that, or the consequence of that, is that like people are learning fast, and they learn and they understand that the best way to create like sustainable whatever is just to do it fast and to do it a lot, Whereas here, like you have someone who has resources,
Yeah.
but they're not gonna think that, oh, I can actually accomplish my dreams faster if I can, engage
Or reach out
people,
to other people.
reach out to other people and do that,
Okay. So more of a community sense.
Yeah. And so China also, money moves really fast,
Yeah.
Money moves really fast. Like I think I was working a lot with the nightclubs and stuff, because I was very good at like bringing people together,
Yeah.
like foreigners in events and telling them like, yo, there's something happening in this place, guys come out, ladies, like free drinks, ladies free drinks. Like I always enjoy doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
And what I realized is that like the clubs, like the money in China flows really fast. So just being in China and being in that business environment, you have to think big. You can't just think about, you have to think big. So if you start a business, even if it's by accident, you just start like selling socks, and then you realize, oh man, people love my socks. Like I think the environment is going to make it so that like, because you have to hire more people, there's demand, so you have to expand, you're going to get people coming in, investing in your business. So I feel like they move really fast, and because they move really fast, people really find out like what they're good at and what makes money. Sometimes you find out what you love, what makes you more money, it's always that like.
Okay. Maybe what would you like change? Based on what you've seen in China, what would you like probably change in Kenya if you're to be given a chance to, based on what you've learned?
I think in Kenya we have an advantage of like we have something, like just like China has a deep history.
Yeah.
I think in Kenya we have a deep culture.
Okay.
And culture means like a lot of people can work together, like on one, towards one goal, even
Harambee spirit.
Harambee spirit, yeah. Even if we decide like, we're making money,
Yeah.
Like it's easy for us to be like, okay, well, we need to sacrifice this, because the goal is to make money. Or like, what we're really good at is like our education system. When you go to high school, like the guys that get A's and stuff like that, we know what it takes to do that. Yeah, to get an A, in math, you gotta sit down, study, practice, revise,
Yeah.
And if you want to get an A in English, you know what to do. Be good at like storytelling, compositions, that kind of stuff. So I feel like in Kenya, we have that sense of like culture. And if we can harness that, then we can just make like gradual, Whereas China, they have an industrial system,
Okay.
Yeah, and already the market forces just makes it so that like every year there's like, you know, tens of thousands of doctors graduating, tens of thousands of engineers.
And already there is a system.
There's a system, yeah,
that is set to transition them from
exactly
education to industry, and then the industry is also well paid.
And they have packages, you know, they have houses, like it's a whole thing, you know, the system that works for them. So, you know, they say like in China, for example, they say like Chinese people, and I've had this experience firsthand, is that like, just like the Westerners are very good at like innovation. You know, they really invent stuff, you know. But I think Chinese people, even right now in Hong Kong, they have a program where they're trying to pay IT companies to just hire interns. They're paying.
No, the government.
The government, yeah, is paying like IT companies so they can just get interns, so the interns can become creative. Because they lack on creativity. Like there's a lot of intellectual, you know, everyone knows how to use Photoshop and Illustrator and like all these things. But if you to develop a concept of a logo, it's very challenging, you know, and it's something that like they feel like it's needed now, like it's needed, that creative humanity that, you know, people thinking, making, you know, like unique songs and things like that. So they're trying to really like they're recognizing that, like, you know, like Chinese people are good at like replicating, like their factories are very good at like machine learning, you know, you give the factory like a product you want, they can make it. But you tell them like you want a product like this and just come up with something. You know, that area is still like developing, yeah.
Okay.
But as in Kenya, I think in Kenya we have like very natural. We have a lot of like just talent, but it's very distributed. You know, it's not organized. You know.
Actually, that's true. Because if you look at the Juakali sector, for example, my thinking is if the government would empower it, because I feel like the Juakali sector is our kind of China.
Yeah.
Because these guys come up with creative things that you might need in the house.
Yeah.
Most of the time, you'll need them in the house, but they're not packaged for the consumer or the modern consumer. So like they'll make a sufuria.
Yeah.
The sufuria will be, you can use it, but it's not that it doesn't look so nice. So for someone, people who have money, most people who have money to buy. So the market is kind of limited. So if, I don't know what needs to be done in that, because I see that a lot in China. China can package something to even look nice, even if it's low quality, but it will look presentable. And
cheap also. They can make it cheap.
Exactly.
You know, and so they become very efficient. It's a very efficient place to live, man. You know, it's a very efficient place to live. Like, and so even the houses are cheap because you realize, because they've made the process of building buildings, so maybe they've reduced the cost so that like you can live in Nanjing, you know, for like $100 and you really have like a really good place, you know.
Is it a case of raw material, access to raw material?
Maybe it's raw material, but it's also, I think that like if you can build like a lot of tall buildings and whatever, and I think you can, maybe, you see, like here in Kenya right now, there's a big conversation going on about housing, you know?
Yes.
And last time I was in Hong Kong, it was the same thing, man. Like just in 2017, I was in Hong Kong and you turn on the TV and it was just like, that's all they were talking about. It's like housing. What are we going to do about housing?
Yeah.
You know?
For them, the conversation was build more houses for.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people are homeless. Hong Kong is having increasingly more homeless people. You know, China, you could not argue that because like it's so big and like the cost of housing in China is so low.
It's very low compared to Hong Kong is high.
Hong Kong is high. Yeah, Hong Kong is
and
like
what's the difference between China
and Hong Kong?
Hong Kong.
It's just it's a territorial difference.
Okay.
Like Hong Kong is an island.
Okay.
Like most of it, like that, you know, it's Hong Kong Island, and then
which is part of China.
Yeah, so historically it was part of China, but now it's a whole debate, you know, where China, even right now, like a conversation, because we're talking as Hong Kong and China as two different entities.
Yeah.
In China, it's kind of illegal, you know. So, but that's their history, you know. But like Hong Kong, that's the case. Hong Kong, the thing that's expensive is rent.
Yeah,
is rent, bro.
Regardless whether it's for office or it's
regardless whether it's office and whatever. So a lot of people live outside of the island. So you have all these islands. So there's Hong Kong here, and there's a lot of islands.
Other islands,
which are like Kowloon,
which are cheaper than Hong Kong.
If you live farther in the island, it's much.
How do you access the islands?
There's the trains.
Oh, there are trains, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
The speed trains, and they even go underwater,
Ah, perfect.
Yeah.
So you don't need to go via ferries and everything.
And they have ferries too, so the ferries are there.
Okay.
But people take ferries. Ferries are usually like a tourist.
Tourist, okay.
Yeah, you go there and you take a ferry, and but like a lot of people stay. So I've lived in Hong Kong in both sides. I've lived in the island. So whenever like I get good projects and I'm really like on rolling, I just rent a place in the island, in the city, and I pay the rent. It's expensive, but then you like you can even walk to the city. 5 minutes you're in the city center.
Yeah.
But a lot of times you can also leave because I'm a veteran.
Yeah.
I just move away, man.
Yeah.
I can live in the island. In the new territories like Kowloon. Kowloon is a pretty cool place, and it's very traditional Hong Kong. So if you live in Kowloon, like it's just like living in the villages, and it's very, But Hong Kong is good for business, and China, like I say, is always good for experimentation. Like if you want to find yourself, man, like find like when we like to talk about like all these, like creating a product, the importance of creating a fast product, like. If someone has resources and whatever, and you want to find yourself, really, like China is a good place to. You can imagine, right? There's factories, so you can just imagine your craziest idea and build it
in China.
And build it in China, yeah.
And then in Hong Kong.
Yeah, in Hong Kong now, when you find your product in China, you have to go to Hong Kong,
So if something works in China, you
take it to Hong Kong. That's what I did, yeah.
And also for production, for production or manufacturing, it's China.
So yeah, no production like Guangzhou, mostly the southern part of China.
Of China, okay. Which is the mainland.
It's a mainland, yeah.
Mainland, okay.
Yeah, so that I think that's where they've. I've been there also. I've been to Guangzhou.
Yeah.
Now the factory they just specialize in mass production.
So they have like cities. They're called cities.
Yeah.
So every city specializes in certain industry.
Like
kind of industry.
Beijing, for example, Bei means north.
Bei north.
So Beijing means the northern capital. Nanjing, means nan, south.
South, okay.
So Nanjing means the southern capital. And then so Nanjing is the southern capital. So this is the administrative capital, Beijing.
Beijing,
That's where like the politics, right? And then the southern part of China, you have like all their business stuff, like, so Guangzhou and stuff like that. And also Shanghai and Nanjing also neighbors, but they're also very administrative places. That's why even Hong Kong is really on the south. That's why Hong Kong used to be like, it's developed to be like a business hub. It's because like it was a trading place and whatever, but like that's where everything developed.
Okay. Okay. So what I'm getting is the specialization of cities. So we have Beijing being the administrative, Guangzhou being what? What is it?
It's like the factory. Guangzhou is like manufacturing. Yeah.
Okay. And then there's one for tech, where you get the motherboards, you get the hardware stuff.
So Nanjing is really like the Silicon Valley.
Nanjing, eh?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
So that I didn't realize that when I went to Nanjing, but when I got there, like especially when I first started doing IT support, like people, even foreigners, like to go to Nanjing when they're in Nanjing. Like people that teach, like there's a lot of people that come there and they teach, and every year they go back home.
Yeah.
So people would carry like whole desktop computers back home. So I used to help people assemble machines,
Yeah.
Because Nanjing you have everything.
Anything that you need, from the tiniest
graphics card, motherboards, you can like assemble a whole machine,
chips, anything that you need.
Yeah. And they will help you, So there's just a market, you can just go and there's just chips. They're just selling chips, right?
Yeah.
So you have everything that just come from the
factory. And then
factory.
you buy them based on the weight.
Yes.
Okay.
So you can buy them like that. But I used to enjoy just assembling machines, because
what's the source of the chips and all these things?
Guangzhou.
So they're being manufactured.
Yeah, they're being manufactured in Guangzhou.
There's big factories for everything.
Yeah. Like Taiwan, like Taiwan is also in the south. So in the south...
Taiwan is an island within China.
Yes, no, Taiwan is its own country, yeah?
Okay.
Yeah, it's its own country.
But it's very close to China.
Yeah, but they also speak Chinese language, the mainland Chinese language, they speak Mandarin.
And the market is China now.
And the market now...
Their market, whatever they produce, where they do...
Taiwan produces silicon, these chips,
Yeah, silicon, yes.
What do you call them? The inductor, conductors.
Inductors or conductors.
Something like that.
Something,
yeah. They make those things, and when you see, like, they specialize with that, like it's like a big part of their economy,
Yes.
like producing all that stuff. So the South, they're pretty good at that. So Nanjing gets all the tech, That get even the new stuff, like the new like phones that have no brands, all the local Chinese, that get made in Guangzhou. They get, like Nanjing just has access to everything. So it's always a cool place, like to be a consultant,
I'm just curious to know where this started, where and how it started.
I think maybe it's just Guangzhou. It's like,
Was it a stimulation by the government policy, and how? Because for me, I'm thinking, how come? Because as you mentioned, they were farmers.
Yeah.
And then,
I met this guy. I have a story for you, man.
Yeah.
So I met this guy. I actually met one guy. He's a Chinese billionaire.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a US billionaire.
Yeah.
He was introduced to me by a client of mine. So my clients were like, we were traveling to Shanghai, and I was in Shanghai.
Yeah.
And my clients told me like, hey, Kelvin, would you like to meet like, our boss?
Yes.
So we met. I was very happy, pleased to meet a Chinese rich man. And so I met him and I asked him like, yo man, how did you make your money?
Yes.
Because he was pretty young.
Yeah.
And he told me like he just got lucky. He started like exporting jeans.
Yeah.
When like in the US, when all these brands started coming up, like Levi's and stuff, because the orders are coming to China.
Okay.
And so he was just like one of the many guys that gets the contract, to like just make jeans. And when you do something like that, like you just become rich, But I feel like that is in Guangzhou. So he was in Guangzhou.
Yeah.
Because Guangzhou was producing all these things, and they had the labor. I don't know, people would just come to Guangzhou to look for work. And so I feel like the government just made it easy, maybe, like policies like that, like having labor,
Cost of production. Which we are doing really badly in Kenya.
Yeah, our cost of production is very high.
Very,
right?
very high because of
electricity. Yeah. So China, for example, electricity is probably very, very cheap, right?
That could explain why manufacturing might be doing so well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And why things can be so cheap, man.
Yes.
Yeah, like things are so cheap. In China. Things can be so cheap in China.
I wish there was a way that I could figure out what stimulated this.
Could you say, communism is very interesting though.
Yeah.
Communism,
but see them, they practice a different kind of.
It's like a
because it's a combination of capitalism.
Capitalism, yeah. It's like a capitalistic communism.
Kind of.
What benefits us right now?
Yes.
And what's good for our national interest?
Yes.
We'll do it. If it's building a lot of money, if it's
and also empowering and enabling. The people.
But us, we've never had any kind of resource that could have sort of like benefited from that kind of.
We have had
minerals?
farming. We've had farming.
Okay.
Which was doing so well in the 90s and the 80s. We had manufacturing, the textile industries. We've had quite a number. Sugar. But you see, politics just killed everything. So as I said,
but China has built like extraordinary wealth, right? Like
they're still
I say, like
and they're succeeding at it.
And even the average Chinese person, man, I'm telling you, like if you just your average Chinese friend, like his mentality on money, you know how they talk about in the West, they always say like this rich mentality. Like if you have a rich mentality, if you always think that you have and you always are grateful, then you're gonna have more.
Yes,
they always say that. Like so in China, people have that sense, like just like even if because someone is gonna start their first job, not thinking about money.
Oh, okay.
Because they just take it and they just it's
just delivering service.
They're just delivering a service, and maybe they're curious about the experience, and so and you realize that this person does not really like chase money, and because of that, like so China really has developed a lot of really skilled. I think there's a lot of like people really are entitled to their wealth. They've really earned it. They've worked hard. It's not like they just got lucky, They really worked hard and they competed amongst themselves, and so when the government lets someone become a billionaire, like Jack Ma, the owner of like Alibaba, that guy is extraordinarily rich, That guy is super rich, and he has so much. So I think when the government allows that, it's also but there's a lot of millionaires and a lot of, we can imagine, like in places like Shanghai, you see the cars that people drive,